Ever wondered, how does God talk to me? Have you ever wondered, how can I hear God's voice? How do I know when he's speaking to me? Sorry, here's my testimony on that. My mom hates Subway. She truly just does not like Subway. And one day I was gonna invite her out to eat and she said, I want Subway. And I'm like, Subway? You want Subway? I was like, okay, fine. I was like, are you sure you don't want me to take you out to eat? She's like, no, I'm okay with Subway. That way you don't have to go back and forth. And I'm like, okay, that's bizarre. Nonetheless, I go to the Subway, and when I get there, being in line, I see, at the cash register, there's this guy and he's having trouble paying for his meal. And I couldn't help but to see him kept telling the worker, can you just please, try it again? There's money on there. Just please try it again. And he kept trying to tell him different ways to try it. And, I felt, something, because I was like, wow, that used to be me, and I used to struggle that way. And so right away in my head, I'm like, you should pay for his meal. You should pay for his meal. And I'm like, oh my God, should I pay for his meal? But I kept hearing this voice, you should pay for his meal, which was bizarre because I'm like, okay, I don't want to make him feel uncomfortable. But I kind of just stayed with that. You should pay for his meal. You should pay for this meal. The worker's making my mom's food. I then, he leans over and I say, because at this point he had stopped, charging him, and he came to make my mom's sandwich, and him and his girlfriend or his partner were off to the side. And, I, politely, very quietly, I was like, hey, how much was their meal? If I was going to pay for their meal, I kind of also did want to know how much it was. What if it was like $100? I probably still would have paid it because I wanted to be obedient to God, because I was like, why am I hearing you should pay for his meal? So he goes, oh, it was like $20 something. And I was like, okay. I told him, I was like, I'm going to pay for it. I was like, but don't, just don't tell him. I'll pay for it at the end. When I pay for my mom's stuff, I'll pay for, for that. Needless to say, he starts walking out, and I'm like, no. And so I tell my son, I'm like, go grab him. But, I tell my son, I was like, don't tell him that, I'm going to pay for his meal, because I just didn't want him to feel uncomfortable. And so, he goes and grabs him. By the time, then I go and I pay for his meal. I feel bad because then he ended up finding out that I ended up paying for his meal. And I wish I would have told him, do you want something else? Do you want some, chips, some cookies? I wish I would have said, it wasn't me. It was Jesus. It was God who sent me to pay for this meal. It gets better, okay? It gets better. Hold on. So then I get home and I'm telling my husband this, which, mind you, we do this all the time. We never come on here telling you guys this. If I'm telling you this right now, it's because of what happened next when my son and I realized, okay? Because my husband will always, if he sees people in line and he sees them struggling, he will pay for their meal if he sees people on the street, because we live in LA, so we have homeless epidemic up the wazoo. So if he sees people out on the street, he'll pay for their meals, or he'll get money out, or whatnot, right? Anyway, so we get home and I tell my husband, I'm like, hey, guess what, this and this happened. And as I'm telling him, and I was like, oh my God, guess what the worker's name was? And before I could blurb it out, my son goes, it was Jesus. So needless to say, he was speaking to me. I didn't even realize it. And the reason, my son realized this, okay, so my kids have, my two little ones, they have this thing where they love to memorize the names of the workers. We're very boring people. We like to go to the same spots all the time. So if we like a spot, we will go to that spot. And so they like to memorize the workers' names. And so it didn't ring a bell in our heads till we were telling my husband this story. So I say this to you to say, if you hear a voice in your head, more so than not, it's Jesus trying to speak to you, trying to tell you what to do. It's up to you whether you want to actually listen to it and go in that path. So, hope you have a great day. Hope this made you smile.